feel like you guys would just have good advice. So to the person who I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to have a family, but I don't want to put so much pressure on meeting people. I guess like, do you have any advice for a 33-year-old man in the dating market? I suppose.
Sure. I mean, I was single for a decade before I met him. Like I had a pretty serious relationship and then I was single for a decade and then I met him and I did the dating app thing. Like I get it. I hated dating. It was brutal.
Yeah.
I really did not enjoy the dating scene. And I felt a lot of pressure from my friends, from my circles to not have such high expectations. Like I was getting a lot of from my friends, you got to lower your expectations. There's a lot of great people. Why aren't you willing to settle for something that's good enough?
Yeah.
And one, boy, am I glad I didn't listen to anybody and settle. Like, I don't know what it was within me that wouldn't let me settle. And geez Louise, I am very glad I didn't settle. And I always believed there was someone out there that would challenge me and love me and support me the way he does. So my first advice is
Don't settle.
don't settle. And the dating apps didn't work for me either. So I totally get that. I think the second thing is to take the lens of more of an adventure,
Yeah.
like
Mm.
be adventurous in it. I think we get so tunnel vision on what we think we want, and we dismiss what we think we don't want. When if we just have the attitude of adventure, of like, who knows, this person may or may not be the love of my life, but they may be a really cool person I can do fun things with, or um, just having a bit more of an open frame of mind and an open lens to the value anyone can bring to your life beyond the romantic relationship. Because I mean, we were friends first. Like when we met, we didn't immediately start dating. Took long enough. We finally did. Not too long, but like long enough. And so I think it was not, and everyone's kind of in different places in their life. And so sometimes a little bit of patience is required. But I think that that lens of adventure
Yeah.
is really helpful.
100%. Yeah, I think like taking some of that, almost like taking the edge off, taking the importance off, the weight of it all, of trying to find this person. If you just go into it with whether this is the person that I spend the rest of my life with or not, either way, I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna meet a
Right.
friend, or maybe they're not even gonna be a friend, but whatever it is, they're in my life for a reason. And just going into it with that attitude of adventure and exploration, and yeah, taking some of that pressure off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good point around yeah, just fun, and don't settle, because the things that make you you, they're non-negotiable. You can't, if you have values and things that you hold dear, you cannot compromise those. If you compromise those, ultimately you're gonna not only feel unfulfilled in the relationship, you're also going to feel unfulfilled just as a person, like inside of you. You're going to be at odds with yourself. You're
Yeah.
going to start to not even like yourself. You're not going to feel like yourself. You're not going to start to like yourself because you're not actually even being you anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really about making sure that you do not settle, or, um, I guess, go against your values.
So
Yeah.
funny story that I've shared a couple of places actually, and I usually talk about it in terms of vulnerability. But I think it also applies to what you just said about actually showing up as yourself and being you and letting people sort of see you. And so it was early days. We were just sort of getting to know each other and we were just talking. And that was actually the very first sign that I was like, yeah, this guy, because the conversation just flowed so easily for us that I was like, there's something special here, but that's separate. When we were having this conversation around kind of getting to know each other, he asked me if I liked Star Wars. Silly little kind of get to know you question, whatever. My interpretation of pop culture is that most dudes seem to like Star Wars. I am not a giant Star Wars fan, so I was a little bit hesitant of like, ooh, do I tell him I don't like Star Wars? Like I want him to like me because I like him, that whole like wanting to fit in and wanting to be the person I think he wants me to be. And then I had a moment of clarity, thankfully, where I said, am I gonna lie about something, A, that's kind of silly like this? Like I'm gonna build this whole thing on a stupid little lie. And also, if that's enough for him to say, oh, I'm done with her, then probably he's not the guy for me anyway. And so maybe I will just actually be me and see if we fit together. And if we do, great. And if we don't, okay. But if we don't, then he's obviously not the right person for me. So just be you and see how it goes. And that's not necessarily anything I had been doing up to that point. Like I'm very much a people pleaser, always wanting to fit in. And so I was always trying to be the person I thought everyone wanted me to be. And I had that one moment of clarity and said, actually, Star Wars isn't really my jam. He's like, oh, me neither. I was like, oh, all that mental turmoil for nothing. But it was such an important lesson for me in that moment to actually not be afraid to be honest about who I am in the silly things. But doing that made it easier for me later with him to be more honest about the bigger things.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That man, that's all such great advice. I thank you so much. Thanks for even letting me ask that. I think that's so cool. Yeah, sometimes I get caught up in realizing, oh, I'm trying really hard, or you're putting too much wood on the fire and suffocating
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
oxygen, and so I'm always just trying to work on. I think that's a great note to just have fun with it. That's what I'm trying to do here in
Just
the end, anyway.
have fun, be you, and it'll
Let it
happen.
go.
Like it's the universe has there's the universe is always working in your favor. It's going to work out exactly how it's supposed to. And likely when you're the least amount of effort, the least amount of trying is when it's just gonna like, oh, boom, get struck by lightning at a random event or something that you're at, and like it'll just be like a chance thing that you
And
weren't
I
planning
will
for.
say, as being single for 10 years, when everyone said, it'll happen when you least expect it, I wanted to punch them all in the face. So I always hated hearing that. However, I
Have
wasn't expecting to meet him when I did. So, like, oh, it kind of annoys me that it wasn't wrong, but I always hated to hear that. So
same, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had one of the older guys that I work with kind of a few months back had given me the same thing. And I believe it, but I also, yeah, I'm with you. I rolled my eyes for sure.